without sacrificing our cultural heritage. Learn more and see employment opportunities at AppliedEarthworks.com. Progress and preservation. Applied Earthworks supports our veterans.
This is KCAA.
Del Walmsley and the Wealth Cycle.
This is the wealth cycle that I've taught for 30 years. Buy one house, 10 houses, an apartment, 2 apartments, 8, 20, 500 units, 1,000 units, 2,000, 5,000 units. And as you keep putting the money and the profits back in, you become one of those rich people. And much quicker than you'd even believe.
Learn Del's Wealth Cycle at GiveMeTotalFreedom.com. Use promo code 2023. Save 60%. Code 2023. GiveMeTotalFreedom.com. GiveMeTotalFreedom.com.
Sometimes stupid political ideas beget even stupider political tactics. For example, a faction of right-wing Republicans wants to stop public discussion and actions involving two ideas they hate. One, racism always has been and still is a systemic problem in American society. And two, LGBTQ people are a normal and welcome part of us, America's richly diverse society. Aside from the raw ignorance behind the GOP's denial of these realities, consider the boneheadedness of their current campaign to impose their bigotry on America. Book banning. At least 50 extremist groups are roaming from city to city, funded by deep-pocket right-wingers like the Koch brothers' political network, to demand that books they don't like be removed from schools and libraries. Worse, their open assault on knowledge and our freedom to read includes the nasty tactic of demonizing and threatening librarians who resist their dictates. Librarians. As a group, these truly helpful people are a national treasure, serving the common good. Yet they're getting physical threats and being fired by these little right-wing mobs. The good news is that local folks are rising up against the book banners. For example, when 2 high school girls in Leander, Texas, asked to check out a few books from their library, they were stunned to learn that the school district had banned all the titles they requested. Students had not been informed of this censorship, much less consulted. Rather than whine, the 2 feisty girls organized the Banned Book Club in their school, reading prohibited titles as a group, then meeting twice a month to discuss the books, including the ban. This is Jim Hightower saying, to get more information and to fight this right-wing repression, contact American Library Association, ALA.org. Howdy-ho, folks. Thanks for tuning in and sharing my weekly commentaries. Also, please join me for a live web show I host every other Tuesday, the Hightower Lowdown Happy Hour at the Chat and Chew Cafe. You can join the action live online as I chat with grassroots leaders and progressive sparklies from around the country. Go to hightowerlowdown.org/chat-and-chew to find out about upcoming guests and watch past episodes. That's hightowerlowdown.org/chat-and-chew.
You're on board KCAA's Inland Talk Express. KCAA, Loma Linda, 1050 a.m., the station that leaves no listener behind.
NBC News Radio, I'm Lisa Taylor. President Biden is running for re-election in 2024. The president, who turned 80 in November, has already said Vice President Kamala Harris will run alongside him. Montana lawmakers are bracing for more protests today involving the first openly transgender woman elected to the legislature. This comes after Missoula Democrat Zooey Zephyr said Republicans would have blood on their hands if they voted for a bill to ban gender-affirming care for minors. The Montana House Speaker labeled it hateful rhetoric and is refusing to let Zephyr speak on the floor until she apologizes. The World Health Organization is warning of a biological risk after a group in Sudan occupied a public health laboratory in the capital Khartoum. That comes just after the U.S. announced a 3-day ceasefire that was supposed to begin last night. The WHO's representative in Sudan called the occupation extremely dangerous because of the polio, measles, and cholera isolates in the lab. The woman at the center of the so-called doomsday cult trial allegedly looked up her kids' life insurance before the children vanished. Lori Vallow is accused of killing her 7- and 16-year-old and conspiring to kill her 5th husband's first wife in the Boise, Idaho trial. This week, prosecutors said an account linked to Vallow looked up the kids' life insurance and also looked up how to sell a service dog. Valo's 7-year-old reportedly used a service dog for autism. Production of the electric Chevrolet Bolt and Bolt EV will end this year. General Motors says the company will transform the Orion assembly plant to build the all-electric Chevrolet Silverado EV and GMC Sierra EV next year. CEO Mary Barra says this will give GM the ability to build 600,000 electric trucks annually. Harry Potter star Daniel Radcliffe is now a father. The actor's publicists confirm Radcliffe and his longtime partner Aaron Drake welcomed their first child. Other details, like if the baby is a boy or a girl or when the child was born, weren't provided. The two first met on the set of the 2013 film Kill Your Darlings. You're listening to the latest on NBC News Radio.
Located in the heart of San Bernardino, California, the Teamsters Local 1932 Training Center is designed to train workers for high-demand, good-paying jobs in various industries throughout the Inland Empire. If you want a pathway to a high-paying job and the respect that comes with a union contract, visit 1932trainingcenter.org to enroll today. That's 1932trainingcenter.org. One of the best ways to build a healthier local economy is by shopping locally. Teamster Advantage is a shop local program started by Teamster Local 1932 that has brought together hundreds of locally owned businesses to provide discounts for residents who make shopping locally their priority. Everything from restaurants like Corky's to fun times at SB Raceway and much, much more. If you're not currently a Teamster and you want access to these local business discounts, contact Jennifer at 909-889-8377, extension 224. Give her a call. That number again is 909-889-8377, extension 224.
Labor unions built the middle class, and the middle class built America. That's the message from Teamsters Local 1932, a strong and successful labor union based in San Bernardino that represents over 14,000 hardworking people across the Inland Empire. The Teamsters are ready to help you organize for better pay, increased benefits, and improved working conditions. Reach out to Teamsters 1932 at teamsters1932.org/organize to speak with an organizer today. Are you underpaid and overworked? Is a living wage and employee benefits like affordable health care more of a dream than a reality for you and your family? If so, it's time to form a union. Don't be denied the wages and benefits you deserve. Come together in a union with the power of numbers. A union is not a privilege, it's your right, and it will make a difference. Contact Teamsters Local 1932, a powerful and successful labor union in San Bernardino, by visiting teamsters1932.org/organize to start today.
The Working Class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here. Today on the big program, lots to get to, lots to talk about. Top story of the day on the social medias. Fox News mouthpiece Tucker Carlson is gone. Off the air, gone, effective, I guess, immediately. Big shock in the Tucker world, but gone. And, the question that is now, on everybody's mind, oh no, now where's a nation going to turn for bull? Where are we going to turn for our daily gorging of misinformation, hate, and outrage? Where are we going to go? Where? I guess Americans are just going to have to figure out who they're going to hate themselves. No more Tucker to point you in that direction. And look, I've had a number of people reach out to me and go, do you believe all the horrible things? Do you think he was, the misogynist, the homophobe, the white supremacist, the fascist, all the things that they're saying? And I'm like, I don't care. If you're knocking elbows with white supremacists, does it matter if you believe it or not? You're a white supremacist. If you're knocking elbows with racists and homophobes and all of that, does it matter? Now here, I've always said that I believe it's worse to know better and do it anyway. because I've had this come up a number of times. Is it if they're a true believer racist, are they worse than someone who would pretend to believe it just for profit? I've always said that the person who knows better and still does it is much worse. And this is where I've always been. It's where I'm always going to be. So this is where we are. But does it matter, really? Does it matter to anybody? Now, the interesting thing is this was the top story in all of the places that I was paying attention to. And, Don Lemon got fired and, a whole bunch of stuff. And you go, does it matter? Because, the story that I was thinking about today is the 10th anniversary. The 10th anniversary of the Rana Plaza factory in Bangladesh collapsing and killing 1,143 people and injuring more than 2,500 others. One of I think it's the fourth or fifth worst disaster for working people on the planet. And it got no mention, really. Not that I saw. And this is one of those moments where you go, there are things that are important and things not so much. And I look at Tucker because, look, there'll be another one. Tucker is not, he's not irreplaceable. There will be, trust me, there will be someone in Tucker's spot. And yes, he will continue to, that person will spew the outrage, and that person will do all the things that have to be done to fleece the flock out of their money. It's that simple, because that's what it's all about. Rupert was right. It's not about red or blue. They don't care about your politics. They care about your money. It's about green. And while they're fleecing us and stealing from working people and doing more of this so they can divide us, we're not remembering where we are. And they're, that's Bangladesh, that's their problem. Yeah, but we're part of that. Because they feed our market. We buy these things. We wear the clothes that are made by the hands that work in these horrible conditions. And we used to be a labor movement that believed in an injury to one being an injury to all. So when I see these stories and I remember these anniversaries, because we should be able to do better. We should be sharing wealth much better than we are. And yet what we've got is, we've got a gazillionaire class. We've got a wealth class in this country that, well, second to none. And not just here, globally, we've got a lot of really rich people. And I've had conversations with people over the years who are like, if they earned it, if they worked hard, they should, they can have $1 billion. Which is why when I saw Jesse Ventura, and this is one of those, I like Jesse Ventura. I liked him as a wrestler. I liked him as a governor. But when I saw Jesse giving this spiel, I had to play it. Listen to Jesse Ventura.
There should not be one billionaire in America. None. And I'll tell you why. Because there is nobody that works hard enough to earn $1 billion. And my argument is this. The 2 jobs I did in my life that were physically the most demanding and mentally the most difficult that I ever did paid me the least amount of money. One was going through buds.
He talks about going through the military and how difficult that was. He starts to swear here, and I can't play the profanity, but he talks about going through the military and how little he was paid doing that. And again, we put those folks up on pedestals. They're heroes. We worship them and then pay them little. And they talked about working for the highway department in Minnesota with a 80-pound jackhammer, 40 hours a week, and challenging a billionaire to go, put your hands on a jackhammer 40 hours a week. Do an actual day's work. And this is where, when I saw this bit by Jesse Ventura, I'm going, this should be the battle cry of the working class in this country. Look, I want people to do well. I want them to lead good lives. But the fact that you're hoarding billions of dollars and then using it against working people is, well, it's disgraceful. So when I saw the CEO, and look, I've been talking about this forever. This is not new to any regular listeners. But when you start looking at CEO to worker pay being, 3, 4, 500, 1,000, 5,000 times what the average worker makes, there's a problem there. And this is where we should go, no, I'm sorry, you're not worth 1,000 times the person who actually does the work. So I saw this story over at the Detroit News. The CEO of Ford, this Jim Farley, they reported on his compensation package, which in 2022, he put in his pocket $21 million. And they said, well, that's 281 times what the median annual total compensation of all Ford employees is. And they said that the annual compensation of a Ford employee is about $75,000. A good, decent, working class wage. Good wage. You know why? The majority of them are represented by the UAW, by a union who demands, a little bit. And I'm going, but it's still 281 times. Does Mr. Farley, and look, I don't know Mr. Farley, but does he produce 281 times more value for Ford Motor Company than the person in the assembly line, the person who's painting the car, the person who's putting the bolts? Is he producing that kind of value? And the answer is no. I go back to, we've all heard the stories, back in the 60s, GM CEO made 20 times that of the average worker. So my mind immediately goes to this place going, what if we lived in that day? What if we had 35% union density in this country where workers truly had a voice at work? What if we had a society and a tax code that said we're going to redistribute wealth in a way that producers and people who work for a living get a fair share? Think about what the average wage would then be if it was 20-1 on $21 million to Mr. Farley. Now, he wouldn't make $21 million, but think about that for a minute. The kind of distribution of wealth that our grandparents' generation demanded. And the thing is that generation, they were, for the most part, able to support a family on one income. Working families were able to make it with one income, one breadwinner. Dad goes off to work in the factory, mom stays home, raises the kids. That's the Leave It to Beaver era. You had vacation, you took vacations, you lived a decent life, you got to retire with some dignity and respect, all of those things that my grandparents lived through. Then we got into the 70s and 80s and into the 90s where corporate America started saying, no, we're not touching those unions. We're going to start breaking them up. Thank you, Ronald Reagan, very much. And that 20-1 CEO to worker pay started going up. And now we're nobody blinks an eye when you see a story 300-1, 400-1. Nobody blinks anymore. Now what I get from people is, well, if they earn it, they work hard. I'm not going to begrudge them of that. Really? So now you went through an era of two-income families. Mom had to go into the workforce because that's how we kept family wages up. It's how we kept food on the table, a roof over the head. And the statistics bear this out. Over the last 40 years, wages have stagnated and declined while the cost of living has skyrocketed. And the only way families can make ends meet was dual incomes. That's the only way. Now I argue we're in a different place. We're in a place where dual incomes no longer can do it. I think we now need three. I think we're in a three-income situation. So unless we're talking about, I don't know, going the multiple spouse route, I don't know how you get three incomes into a house other than someone working a job and a half, each partner working a job and a half, or one person working two full-time jobs or whatever, because we're not helping working families. I read a story today that pointed out that in Atlanta, the food bank there, the community food bank in Atlanta, shelves are empty. We're back to pandemic levels of hunger. Some of it's supply chain, some of it's getting there, but it's the fact that wages aren't keeping up. The cost of living is getting higher and higher. And congratulations. Families are hungry. And wages are not doing it because they're not going up fast enough. They're going up a little bit. They're ticking up. But for the average working person, without some support, some voice in the workplace to grab a little bit of the obscene profits that are robbing us blind, it's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse. Because again, Republicans aren't going to help. Democrats aren't doing much better. This is where organizing, this is where coming together and saying these are the issues that are important. All I'm hearing out of the House is nonsense. The question is how do we move in a direction that's going to get back to that ideal of one income supporting a family? Is it even possible? Are we too far down the road? Are we too far gone? I fear we are. But shouldn't we have a goal for the future? Shouldn't we have somewhere to go? You know, it would be nice. It would be nice to do better. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. I want to hear your thoughts. Gonna take a quick break. Right back.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
The phone lines are open. Give Rick a call at 1-866-416-RICK. That's 1-866-416-7425.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So, hunger levels back at pandemic levels, families struggling to make ends meet, inflation not coming down fast enough, and what are the Republicans, what are they doing? What's their plan? Because again, they're pointing all the fingers at Biden. It's all Biden's fault. If you watched any social media, the blue check mafia, they're pointing all at Biden. Biden did this by giving you $1,400. Biden did this by investing in infrastructure. Biden did this, and we're going to repeal all of it. And again, the plan, make things worse. And how? Well, we're fighting this debt ceiling thing. It's crazy what they're doing. But what we know is, and what Morgan Stanley's even saying it, this is going to cause a recession. This is going to hasten the speed at which a recession happens because they want 22% across the board cuts. The VA, 22% slashing of the VA budget. Imagine that. Again, remember, these are our heroes. These are the people we put up on the pedestal. The people that Jesse Ventura said the hardest job he's ever done for the lowest pay. And yet we've got billionaires. Now, according to Moody's Analytics, they say that if what McCarthy wants, if that plan to cut spending to lift the debt ceiling happens, it would mean an increase in the likelihood of a recession and almost 800,000 fewer jobs by the end of 2024. Compared to just doing what they should do, and that is just raise the debt ceiling. Now, for my union brothers and sisters, if you listen to what McCarthy is saying, you listen to what the Republican plan is, it's to undo all of the spending that was in the American Rescue Plan. That's the goal, right? The goal is to all that stuff that hasn't been spent yet, we're going to undo. Because a lot of the money in the American Rescue Plan hasn't been spent. Now, remember their argument. Their argument is Biden spent all this money, and we're going to claw back the money he hasn't spent. Because he spent all this money, but not really. And one of those areas, my union brothers and sisters, is the Butch-Lewis Act. Now, for those who don't know what the Butch-Lewis Act is, it's what helps shore up the multi-employer pension funds in this country, because there are a number of pension funds that were going to go bust, which means a bunch of people who work their entire lives to get a pension we're going to end up with basically nothing. So we helped working people. And most of that money hasn't been allocated yet. Most of that money is still in the process of getting where it needs to go. So if Republicans do what they want to do and what they say they're going to do, that means retirees, my red hat wearing Trump Teamster buddies, that means your pension's screwed. So again, I look at this moment where be careful what you wish for. Because if Republicans get their way, if they can get all their wet dream list done, it means our pension system is screwed. It means, again, we're going to have a scenario where working people take it on the chin at the benefit of the very wealthy. More rich people, few more, lots more poor people. Something seriously wrong with that. Let's go to the phones. I got Alice on line one. Alice, how are we doing today?
We're doing okay.
What's on your mind?
So, a couple of things. First of all, so we have the Republicans who have absolutely no problem with giving all these tax breaks to the wealthy. And we're cutting the taxes and therefore bringing in less revenue. And then everyone's going, oh, well, we have to get rid of the assistance to the elderly and the poor. And what I've come to the conclusion from speaking to some people that they don't understand that this is our tax money that we are putting into helping others. So once again, we're letting off the wealthy because we're taking our tax dollars and we're helping people that need help. Whereas if we'd raise the taxes on the wealthy and the wealthy would also pay better wages, we could have more money overall. But, that's right up there with the voodoo economics, too.
Yep. No, you're not wrong. This, again, is another one of these moments. You look at all these massive stock buybacks going on, the railroad industry, billions of dollars in stock buybacks. Those should have been wages going to workers. Those should have been improvements into the industry so you have safer trains. It should have been used in a way that helps build us all up instead of just enriching a handful. And that's just not the railroad industry. It's industry after industry where these rich people have lined their pockets at the expense of everyone else. And I know, before I get someone emailing me, but we've got pension funds. Yeah, we do. And they rob us blind every chance they get.
Absolutely. Look what they've done over the years to Social Security and even the postal workers' pension funds. But there you go. That's Republicans for you. Have a good evening, Rick.
Thanks, Alice. Appreciate it. No, again, you got Ron Johnson still running around in Wisconsin, talking about Social Security's a Ponzi scheme. Well, you believe whatever you want. You know what that is? That is the greatest anti-poverty program ever invented in this country. Because we as a society said, you're not going to have to work your entire life and end up living in poverty in your final years. We said that as a society. And what's interesting is the Republican vision of the future is desperation and poverty in your old age. If you're not fortunate enough, or look, some people, I'm smart enough to save. If you're not lucky enough, you're not fortunate enough to be able to put money aside in your working years, your quote-unquote golden years are going to be very difficult. And look, that's the mass of working people. I was just reading a thing the other day, said something like, since we moved from the defined benefit pension to these wonderful 401ks, the baby boomer generation screwed, but not as bad as Generation X, and really not as bad as the millennials, because, at least the baby boomers had something of a defined benefit. Some Gen X still had some defined benefit pensions, me being one of them. And then everyone else is, hey, sorry, you didn't make enough money to squirrel some aside? Well, that's just tough luck on you. And we're heading towards a moment where there's going to be a catastrophe. You're not going to have the turnover, the churn of older workers retiring and younger workers being able to take their positions. And Social Security hasn't risen to the point where it can take on that. Remember how the social compact was set up. Social Security was one leg of the three-legged stool. A defined benefit pension was another leg of that stool, and your personal savings. So the idea of, like I have, Going to have Social Security. I've got a defined benefit pension through the job I had for a bunch of years, and my 401k that I put money into, my personal savings. My stool is going to be okay. Everybody else has seen their legs whittled away, and right now, most people, all they've got left is Social Security. And Republicans want to take that last leg and beat them with it. People like Ron Johnson want to do away with it, privatize it. Why? Well, so the wealthy can benefit off of that as well. All of these privatization schemes that have come up over the last 30, 40 years, none of them have worked for working people. None of these gimmicks and these schemes that the really smart economic wizards in the Reagan years and in the Bush years, none of that stuff ever worked for working people. That's not to say it didn't work. It worked exactly as it was supposed to. It made the wealthy wealthier and much more powerful. It took the power of government out of the hands of we the people, and it made we working people desperate. Worked exactly to a charm the way it was supposed to. Not the way it was sold, mind you, but the way it was supposed to work. And this is where, we're arguing over bathrooms instead of talking about what the future of the working class in this country is. It's frightening where we are. And the question I have is, when do we say enough is enough? And I'm telling you, I keep coming back to, we need a working class revolution. We need a mental uprising. We need people to stand together. Is that now? We'll see. I got lots to get to. Gonna take a quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1937. That was the day a truce came in the Stockton Cannery Workers' strike. It was a pivotal moment that embodied the conflicts of the 1930s labor movement. The AFL initially wrote agricultural workers off as unorganizable. They soon raced to unionize California canneries ahead of the International Longshoremen's Association's march inland to organize warehouse workers. By early April, Agricultural Workers Union 20221, representing 5 canneries, demanded higher pay, better working conditions, and a closed shop. The canners and growers refused on the basis that they had just granted a 25% raise to the workers. They then attempted to spike union support among workers, whether AFL or CIO, by arguing, quote, one was dominated by communists, the other by racketeers, so take your choice. Soon, they formed a citizens' labor investigating committee to thwart the impending strike. Picket lines went up in the early hours of April 15th. Growers and canners appealed to law enforcement to do something and appealed to the public to enlist in the forcible reopening of the canneries. Dubbed the Pick-Handle Army, anti-union forces joined the sheriff's department in confronting the strikers on the 23rd. There, they battled with picketers for over 3 hours in what is referred to as the Spinach Riot. Picketers confronted scabs and spinach delivery drivers and were beaten, gassed, and shot by sheriff's forces, resulting in 1 death and 58 injuries of strikers. Considered one of the worst labor battles in California's history, the state federation moved to strip the union of its charter once the truce was called. They reorganized workers as Cannery Workers Union 20676 and won sole recognition. But agricultural workers would remain unorganized for years to come.
Do you find it as charming as I do when some leisure-class corporate chieftain whines that America's working stiffs are a bunch of slackers? We're hearing that now from Wall Street plutocrats, grumping that employees no longer have that old nose-to-the-grindstone, yes-boss work ethic of old-school capitalism that has created such fabulous wealth. Of course, wealth for whom and work for what are at the root of today's questioning of the old culture and structure of work. But the grumpers don't want to hear that, so they simply carp that America has gone soft. The latest high-flying scolder is Stephen Ratner, the Wall Street huckster who was fined $6 million in 2010 for running a kickback scheme and banned from investment banking for 2 years. But now he's back in the financial hustle, feeling free to chastise you for what he sees as your lack of hustle on the job. In particular, Steve is peeved at you work-from-home people, asserting with no actual evidence that you're not really working. He claims it will inevitably lead to a lower standard of living, a standard he measures strictly in money, not quality of life. Indeed, he says that your life should be work, pointing with envy to China's 996 system, a grinding ethic of expecting people to work from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week. Then Ratner offers a grand solution to dissuade work-from-home arrangements: housing. Why, he asks, have a big majority of European workers already returned to their offices? Simple, he says. Most people there live in small apartments and houses, making stay-at-home work less comfortable. Voila! Put America's workers in tiny houses and office space will fill up. This is Jim Hightower saying, see, life is simple if you view it from the heights of Wall Street. Thank you, Steve. Now, go away.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So you may remember last week we were in D.C. for the Patriotic Millionaires event. And yes, they're talking about raising taxes on rich people like them. And I do find it interesting that the right never misses an opportunity to try and undermine what those folks are doing. But the reality is they're saying, look, tax us. We need to spend this money in a better way. And I think the narrative has to be, we've got to be talking about taxes as a matter of everyday policy, because a lot of people glaze over, their eyes get upset. Nobody wants to pay taxes. And we're trained like Pavlovian dogs. Anytime we hear the word tax, we start to foam and get upset. So how do we change that? Well, maybe we start talking to people earlier. Had I known about taxation and progressive taxation younger, maybe I would be a little smarter, a little more down the road. That's why I find it interesting that there are some folks who are trying to do that. And that's what my next guest has done. Amy Hanauer is the executive director of the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy. She's one of the grantees from the W.K. Kellogg Foundation's digital storytelling program. And taxes seems to be her story time. This I got to hear about. Amy, I appreciate you taking time for us.
Yeah, great to talk to you, Rick.
So how do you talk to kids about taxes? How is taxes something we're supposed to hate? Death and taxes, only inevitable things. How do we talk about that with kids?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's the thing is you got to recognize that taxes are like how we make the decision about who's going to get what in this country, right? And so we've got a country where inequality has just been soaring and growing for decades now. Incredibly concentrated wealth. And at the same time, like compared to a lot of other places around the globe, we don't do as much to make it easy to raise kids. You know, we don't have free childcare. We don't have paid leave for working parents. We make it really hard for working class kids to afford college. We make it parents can't even take paid time off when they have a kid. It's not a guaranteed thing in most jobs. So if we want kids to thrive in America, I think we really have to start with fair taxes. And it's the way we can deliver the essentials to children and families and parents.
Yeah, see, I argue that Leave It to Beaver era of our grandparents' generation was made possible by a progressive tax code and strong union density. Those two things were the magic sauce of that era that gave people the ability to survive on one income and raise a family. And as they were breaking that down, now we got 2-income families. And I argue right now, maybe you'll agree or disagree, I think we're in the 3-income range right now just to support a family, because things have gotten so out of whack and wealth is so badly distributed away from people who work to people who, move money from one pocket to the other.
Totally, 100%. And it's like, how are you supposed to pay for childcare? Like, we're looking at costs that center-based childcare for one kid can cost more than $10,000 a year. But, that's like just not an amount that most people have to spend. You look at college debt, right? The average college graduate owes more than $37,000 in student debt, and many people owe a lot more than that. And you think back, right, 40 years ago, you could work a minimum wage job in the summer and maybe on some weekends during the school year. And between the fact that tuition was a lot lower and the minimum wage was a lot higher, that was enough to pay for college right there.
Yeah, I've got a lot of friends who are, 10, 15 years older than me who tell that story. I have a friend who went all the way through the University of Michigan, undergrad law school, working as a waitress, living in a crummy apartment, driving a crappy car, but walked out of there with a law degree and zero debt.
That's right.
That's unheard of. It's impossible today. Not just unheard of, but impossible.
Impossible. And it's become harder and harder, right? Like you can't really send your kids out the door and down the street to the playground by themselves, right? Something that maybe, I don't know, that was something certainly I did in my childhood. But, there were more eyes on the street. It wasn't, as you said, people weren't working 3 jobs to support their families, and it was just kind of an easier situation. So look, we've got such extreme wealth, and we could tax wealthy people and corporations and use that revenue for paid leave, for childcare, for education, for healthcare. And it would be good for kids of every race. It would be good for kids all over this country. So I think it makes a lot of sense. And if you look at the fact that we have 55 profitable corporations in 2020 pay 0 in taxes, right? If you look at the fact that you've got some of the wealthiest billionaires on the planet paying almost nothing in taxes, and yet you've got waitresses and construction workers and teachers, they get their taxes deducted out of every paycheck. They can't cheat.
Right.
But the really wealthy can.
But isn't this the argument, Amy? And this is where I have a lot of my working class brothers and sisters going, this is why we need a flat tax. We have to have a flat tax, Amy. Is this an argument for that?
Absolutely not, because the problem with a flat tax is that a flat tax is an upside down tax, right? Because it means that people who are kind of living off of their paycheck to paycheck are paying the same percentage of their income as the very wealthy in income taxes, but they're already paying a higher share in sales taxes because they got to spend everything that they bring in, right? They're paying a higher share in property taxes because, they're spending more of their income on housing. And they're paying a higher share in the payroll tax, which is, the tax that goes to Social Security, the FICA tax on everybody's, you see it on your paycheck whenever your pay stub comes out. And so you end up with an upside down tax code where lower income people are paying a higher share. It should be the opposite. We should make sure that the wealthier you are, everybody pays the same amount on the first $50,000 in income. Everybody pays the same amount on the next $50,000 in income. But if you make $1 million, you can pay more on the share that's over 100,000 or over 200,000, and that is what I think makes a much more fair tax code.
Yeah. No. Earlier I played a clip of Jesse Ventura, former governor of Minnesota, saying we should have no billionaires, none. And I agree with him. I've been saying this for years that it just should not happen in our society. But what's happened is we've rigged the tax code so badly, we've rigged the employment situation so badly that we've got not just a handful of billionaires, we got what, like 1,500, 1,800 billionaires now certified. And I'm sure there's a couple more that sneak in there. And I'm sorry, I don't see how that's good for society.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's not. And I don't even think it's good for the billionaires, to be honest. At this point, the estate tax is such that a couple can pass on $25 million totally tax-free. And that's before they start socking away more of it in trusts and other kind of loopholes. And, how is that good for a kid, right? To inherit $25 million? How is that promoting that kid's work effort? And
I don't know. I think I would have been pretty happy with it. I just wasn't fortunate enough to be born in that situation.
I don't know if you would be, man. They spend their whole life trying to justify that they deserve that money. I think people are better off if they, everybody should be able to inherit grandma's house or whatever. Yeah. But $25 million, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you listen to Elon Musk or you listen to Donald Trump. They got, I guess, 1 million each or 100,000 or something. They got something. Now, it wasn't 25 million, but they worked for it. I'm not sure where I was going there other than...
Yeah, I think Trump inherited a little more than that.
other than the fact that, even they are embarrassed by inheriting that kind of wealth.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
I mean, no, I worked for it. No, you didn't. You had the invisible capital of a name. You had the invisible capital of all the contacts that come along with that. And they've sold working people on this idea that they had to pull themselves up by the bootstraps too, so you could be just like them. And the sad reality is most working people are not going to be able to. So we should have a tax code that rewards work, which is why I like with one of the things that the patriotic millionaires were talking about was raising that individual deduction to a living wage deduction. And I think that is a fabulous idea and would be enormously helpful.
Yeah, no, and absolutely. And actually, the patriotic millionaires were talking about some non-tax things too, right? They were talking about raising the minimum wage. And, again, it's kind of this combination of things where too many jobs just don't pay enough to get by. And then we're cutting the services that would, that you'd kind of use alongside a job to make your life work, right? Like you need affordable transportation, you need your roads not to kill your car when you drive down the street. And, you need to be able to send your kids to a decent school. And in too many parts of America, those things just aren't a given.
No, I'm right there with you, Amy. So last line of questioning I've got for you, because I think we have to have this conversation every day. And I know taxes are not something sexy and to get really excited about. But the reality is you go back to the socialist President Dwight Eisenhower's tax code. Corporations were paying considerably higher than they're paying now. The wealthy were paying enormously high. Well, what was the corporate tax rate in 53? What, about 56%? Down.
There was a point when it was up to 90%.
Not the corporate. The corporate
not
tax.
the corporate. Sorry, the tax on billionaires. And so that's, I think, the irony is that you'll have people implying that trickle down works when in fact the time that this country had the fastest growth, when incomes were growing across the board, black, white, middle income, low income, high income, everybody's income was growing, life expectancies were growing, education levels were growing, and that was at the time when we had the highest level of taxation. And corporations were doing just fine because you had a lot of people able to buy the products, you had people living longer, you had you had workers who could afford to retire, and it made a lot more sense in a lot of ways.
You still had rich people. So 1952 top corporate rate 52%. Now because of Trump down to 21%. That same year top marginal tax rate on rich people 92%. Now you're looking at 37%. And actually it was down to 28% during the Reagan years. And you wonder how we got this upside down wealth situation going on, is what we redistributed from people who actually work to the folks who don't. And I go back to that premise. When we had a tax code that had some progressivity to it, there was a reason to pay higher wages. There was a reason to reinvest. Now we got stock buybacks. We're taxing at 1 measly rotten percent. Really?
Yeah, right. And then you look at Best Buy, right, who threw away all their money on stock buybacks and are closing down, and workers aren't even going to get any retirement security at all. It's a shame, but it's easy to fix, right? I mean, it's just a matter of will. And the fact is, most people want most of this stuff. Like, most people think that billionaires should pay more. Most people don't think that there should be, money that goes totally untaxed, which there is right now because of the stepped up basis where you can, have your wealth accumulate, and then if you die without selling it, all that wealth just vanishes into thin air. Most people think corporations should pay. And so, there's a lot we could do if we just had politicians who weren't kind of in the pockets of the very wealthiest lobbyists.
And it comes back to us, and why I think what you are doing and what you're doing with the Kellogg Foundation is important. I hope they'll check out the website, everychildthrives.com. Well, they'll find your piece there, right?
Yeah, that's right. And they can go to itep.org too, which is ITEP, my organization, Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy. Find a whole mess of stuff on how, how the rich get away with paying less and how we can fix it all.
There you go. Good stuff. We'll get links out on social media. Amy Hanauer, I appreciate you taking time for us. Thanks so much. Great piece Again, I hope you'll come back and share with us again in the near future.
Always great to talk to you, Rick. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Amy. Good seeing you again. Again, you want to check out that website, itep.org, itep.org. You'll get lots of information there. Also, everychildthrives.com, the website, if you want to check out the pieces that they're doing there. Going to take a quick break. Right back.
The phone lines are open. Give Rick a call at 1-866-416-RICK. That's 1-866-416-7425.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1999. A headline from the Los Angeles Times declared dock crews to halt work in support of death row inmate. Up and down the West Coast, the ports stood silent. The International Longshoremen and Warehousemen's Union had called their members off the job for a one-day strike. They did this to protest the death sentence for Mumia Abdul-Jamal. Mumia was a black activist and journalist who was on death row accused of killing a police officer in Philadelphia. Yet many peace and justice activists in the United States and beyond have questioned the evidence leading to his conviction. In October of 1998, the Pennsylvania State Supreme Court rejected an appeal from Mumia. Jack Heyman, a member of the executive board of the Longshoremen's Union in San Francisco, explained the context of his union's protest in a piece he wrote for the San Francisco Chronicle. He wrote, quote, "Labor and minorities share a common history of being victimized by the criminal justice system in this country. Both have long been aware of police repression and the unequal use of the death penalty against minorities and the poor. From the Haymarket martyrs who rallied workers for the 8-hour day to Harry Bridges, the Longshore Union leader targeted for deportation for being a Red, to the Black Panther Party whose program of self-defense put it on the FBI's list. In San Francisco, longshoremen chanted, "An injury to one is an injury to all. Free Mumia Abu-Jamal." Protests against Mumia's execution took place across Europe in cities like London, Madrid, Dublin, and Amsterdam, and by unions in France, Brazil, and South Africa. After 30 years on death row, Mumia's sentence was commuted to life without parole. He is still in prison. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show.
You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
I get it a lot from people going, "No, you talk about taxes too much." No, taxes, this is how we fund the things we want. It's how we have decent infrastructure, how we fund education, how we pay for the military we all love to talk about. This is how past generations were able to distribute wealth in a way that society as a whole got better. And look, when we were talking amongst the patriotic millionaires, one of their common fears is they know they've got it good. They know they're okay. They worry about the pitchforks coming out when the next recession hits. And look, Republican policies over this debt ceiling are moving us in that direction. They know that it could be their heads on platters. There's a lot of self-interest in the patriotic millionaires saying, "Hey, tax us, use our money in a way that's going to benefit society." It seems logical. Let's quick go to the phones. Got Grayson on line 1. Grayson, how you doing today?
I'm doing really, really well, Rick. Thank you for taking my call.
What's on your mind, brother?
I think you put it very well there. They're scared, and I think that it is actually the fear and the needs of the very wealthy that's driving the debt ceiling plan, and specifically the fact that there are these enhanced work requirements, totally new work requirements for Medicaid and enhanced work requirements for SNAP. I think that they have come to see, look, you have a bunch of low-wage workers who are never unionizing, never fighting back in any way, and now they're unionizing all across the country. They're demanding better wages. They're willing to quit their jobs. They're making up all this media rhetoric around the term quiet quitting. So they're thinking, okay, maybe they're getting a little too comfortable, and we're going to have to take away their health insurance so that if they decide, oh, yes, I'm going to quit my job because they're not paying me very well, or I'm going to wind up unionizing and going on strike, that they're going to lose their health insurance through Medicaid, which is how these low-wage workers are getting their health coverage, and then tightening up things on SNAP, which already had work requirements. So it seems like it's less about saving the government money in their budget and more about disciplining labor and stopping labor organizing both in the formal sense and in the more informal people quitting their jobs and deciding that they won't take those bad conditions anymore, because now you won't even have health insurance if you go ahead and you fight back against the boss in the slightest way.
No, you're absolutely right. In fact, we've been talking about that for months now, and it doesn't even have to be conspiratorial, Grayson. The Federal Reserve said we need to make make more layoffs so that the job market isn't as tight, so that workers aren't as willing to quit and then go on strike. None of this stuff should be a surprise to working people, but what's surprising to me is, just how easy it is for the Republicans to go ahead and push for the things that are going to do exactly what you said, without fear of consequence from you, me, or anybody else, or the people that it's going to affect. That's the surprise part to me.
Yeah, I think it's because they've gotten comfortable in the fact that they got the House in the last election. They've gotten very comfortable with it. And I was actually an organizer in the Tea Party movement back eons ago before coming to the left. And the one thing that I've seen, and that I think they might repeat again with this recession, is that they can twist the rhetoric to make it seem like, for those who are in the middle class, upper middle class, those types of people, even the lower middle class, get them to believe the reason why the economy is so bad is because there are people that are taking handouts and that there's too much money being given out by government, and the whole taxed enough already shtick might be coming right back, because they know how to twist it in a way that people believe, basically gaslight themselves into believing that they and people that are closer to them in economic proximity than the wealthy people are actually the problem, instead of pointing to the actual problem.
No, you're so
they've
spot on.
gotten too comfortable with the ability to use rhetoric.
No, I mean, that's spot on.
Thank
and look, as a former Tea Party organizer that you say you were, I remember at the beginning telling my labor friends that you should be getting involved in this Tea Party movement because it's your issue. It's jobs, it's manufacturing, it's the stuff that working class people should have been taking over. And sadly, it was co-opted by the wealth class, the Americans for Prosperity, and those groups who heavily funded that to make it take a really radical right-wing turn. But at the beginning of it, I was all on board. Yeah, let's talk about jobs. Let's talk about reshoring manufacturing. And let's talk about taxes, because I think the working class is taxed enough. We're not taxing the billionaires. That's the problem.
Yes, it's that bigger picture that they deliberately don't want you to see, and people just don't get it. And that's why I'm so glad that there are voices out there like yourself that are willing to say that over and above all the noise that's going out there.
No, I appreciate it, Grayson. Thank you so much. I'd love to hear from you again.
You have a great day.
Thanks so much. No, this is, again, I go back to this, and I remember this, and I'm glad Grayson brought this up. I remember this like it was yesterday. When the first Tea Party group started, under this guise of, we're taxed enough already, and for those who don't know what tea means, that's what it means. And I remember telling my labor friends, look, get people to these meetings. Educate these people, because these folks, they're the talk radio crowd. The talk radio crowd got them in the room. They're active, they're engaged, they're angry. Get in there and educate them on labor issues. Get in there and talk to them about actual tax policy, instead of letting the right fill their heads with Fox and with all of the right-wing blather and all of it's the other's fault. It's all of this social spending. It's all of those people who are doing this to you. The guy who stood up in, not too far from where I live and said, if you get your government hands off my Medicare, had there been someone in that room to say, whoa, buddy, you do realize Medicare's a government program. You do get that, right? Had someone sat him down and talked to him a little bit, probably would have been a different outcome. And this is the place where I keep coming back to time and time again. We've got to be talking to working class people and educating on the issues that are really important. And the tax issue is right there, one of the most important issues that we've got going on. Seriously, it is one of the most important things. Because if they continue to rob us blind, they continue to pocket the wealth and the fruits of our labor, there's a serious problem. And this is why I think I'm hopeful. I am hopeful. Let's quick go to the phones. I got real quick Lewis on line 2. Lewis, how are we doing today?
I'm doing all right, Rick. Thanks for taking my call. I've been listening to what you're saying tonight, and brother, you are hitting it out the park. Everything you're saying is on point.
Appreciate it, brother.
I just wanted to add, excuse me?
Appreciate it.
Yeah. I just wanted to add, when you were talking about why it takes 2 and 3 paychecks to make it, the problem is this, right? Like you said, during the middle of the 20th century, all these programs, defined benefits and, and making more money go down to the workers, it worked fine. There was nothing wrong with what America was doing in this middle part of the 20th century. As you said, incomes were going for everybody. Now, because of this kind of fetish on neoliberalism, it's running the country into the damn ground, And being a former academic, I know the damage it's been doing to higher ed. So, I agree with you. We really need to come together and say enough is enough. And I just want to say, in regards to working people, that category, we all need to think of it as being expanded, because the research I've done, you have people who have done everything right and had these nice white-collar, professional jobs, and they're struggling paycheck to paycheck.
Yep.
And it has nothing to do with the fact that they bought too many luxury cars or spent too much on their homes. The 2 biggest expenses, as you know, education and housing.
That's it.
And it impacts everybody except for the uber wealthy.
You're spot on. Lewis, I appreciate it. I appreciate it, brother. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Take care.
Got to take a quick break. Right back after this. Love to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Back after this.
While the Sunshine State is still drying out from last week's historic rainfall, it's the gas pumps that are really dry.
Fort Lauderdale struggles with ripple effect from extreme weather disaster. Historic record-shattering heat in Asia has turned deadly. Plus,
our proposal would restore American energy leadership.
House Republicans hold U.S. clean energy sector hostage to raise the nation's debt limit.
All of those gangster stories and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
President Biden has a choice. Come to the table.
Or the economy gets it. This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, we're always celebrating Earth Day around here at the Green News Report, but now everyone else gets to do it as well.
Yes, once again, a reminder that Saturday, April 22nd is Earth Day, with events in the U.S. and around the world celebrating our fragile little oasis of life in the vast desert of space.
Oh, that's nice.
You're on board KCAA's Inland Talk Express. KCAA, Loma Linda, 1050 a.m. The station that leaves no listener behind.
NBC News Radio, I'm Lisa Taylor. President Biden is running for re-election in 2024. The president, who turned 80 in November, has already said Vice President Kamala Harris will run alongside him. Montana lawmakers are bracing for more protests today involving the first openly transgender woman elected to the legislature. This comes after Missoula Democrat Zoe Zephyr said Republicans would have blood on their hands if they voted for a bill to ban gender-affirming care for minors. The Montana House Speaker labeled it hateful rhetoric and is refusing to let Zephyr speak on the floor until she apologizes. The World Health Organization is warning of a biological risk after a group in Sudan occupied a public health laboratory in the capital Khartoum. That comes just after the U.S. announced a 3-day ceasefire that was supposed to begin last night. The WHO's representative in Sudan called the occupation extremely dangerous because of the polio, measles, and cholera isolates in the lab. The woman at the center of the so-called doomsday cult trial allegedly looked up her kids' life insurance before the children vanished. Lori Vallow is accused of killing her 7- and 16-year-old and conspiring to kill her 5th husband's first wife in the Boise, Idaho trial. This week, prosecutors said an account linked to Vallow looked up the kids' life insurance and also looked up how to sell a service dog. Vallow's 7-year-old reportedly used a service dog for autism. Production of the electric Chevrolet Bolt and Bolt EV will end this year. General Motors says the company will transform the Orion assembly plant to build the all-electric Chevrolet Silverado EV and GMC Sierra EV next year. CEO Mary Barra says this will give GM the ability to build 600,000 electric trucks annually. Harry Potter star Daniel Radcliffe is now a father. The actor's publicists confirm Radcliffe and his longtime partner Aaron Drake welcomed their first child. Other details, like if the baby is a boy or a girl or when the child was born, weren't provided. The two first met on the set of the 2013 film Kill Your Darlings. You're listening to the latest on NBC News Radio.
Located in the heart of San Bernardino, California, the Teamsters Local 1932 Training Center is designed to train workers for high-demand, good-paying jobs in various industries throughout the Inland Empire. If you want a pathway to a high-paying job and the respect that comes with a union contract, visit 1932trainingcenter.org to enroll today. That's 1932trainingcenter.org.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us if you want Viagra at the lowest prices. Never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 800-357-1583 today to save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 800-357-1583 to take your call now. Call 800-357-1583. That's 800-357-1583. Again, 800-357-1583.
Hills Country Kitchen is now open for business. Hills Country Kitchen, the newest restaurant in Yucaipa at the corner of 15th and Yucaipa Boulevard, across from Crafton Hills College. Located in the collection at Crafton Hills Shopping Center, along with Laser Legacy, the original Rosie's. Hills Country Kitchen, where you're always welcome. Hills has the recipe for delicious breakfast, reasonably priced lunches, and amazingly scrumptious dinner. Hills Country Kitchen in Yucaipa is now open for breakfast and lunch and amazingly scrumptious dinner. Where you're always welcome, Hills has the recipe at the corner of 15th and Yucaipa Boulevard, across from Crafton Hills College.
Are you underpaid and overworked? Is a living wage and employee benefits like affordable health care more of a dream than a reality for you and your family? If so, it's time to form a union. Don't be denied the wages and benefits you deserve. Come together in a union with the power of numbers. A union is not a privilege, it's your right, and it will make a difference. Contact Teamsters Local 1932, a powerful and successful labor union in San Bernardino, by visiting teamsters1932.org/organize to start today.
One of the best ways to build a healthier local economy is by shopping locally. Teamster Advantage is a shop local program started by Teamster Local 1932 that has brought together hundreds of locally owned businesses to provide discounts for residents who make shopping locally their priority. Everything from restaurants like Corky's to fun times at SB Raceway and much, much more. If you're not currently a Teamster and you want access to these local business discounts, contact Jennifer at 909-889-8377, extension 224. Give her a call. That number again is 909-889-8377, extension 224.
The information and opinions you hear on the Del Walmsley radio show are those of the host, Del Walmsley, his guests, and his callers, and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of this station, its affiliates, its management, or advertisers. The Del Walmsley show is for entertainment purposes only. Please consult a professional regarding your personal investment needs. Nothing presented on the Del Walmsley show constitutes an endorsement, recommendation, offer, or solicitation to buy or sell any product or security.
Portions of the show may be previously recorded. Welcome to the Del Walmsley Radio Show. Listen and grow as Del questions the status quo, encourages you to think differently, and empowers you to make a better life. Get ready as Del challenges core beliefs, seeks the truth, and reveals the roadmap to the lifestyle you really want. And now your host, multi-millionaire, national award-winning investor, CEO and founder of Lifestyles Unlimited, Del Walmsley.
Welcome to the Del Walmsley Radio Show, where the hype ends and the help begins. I'm your host, Del Walmsley, and as always, we're working on your financial freedom. Today, my friends, is Tell Del Tuesday, and we have a family here today that have really taken off in the industry. Started back in 2016 and just decided to go crazy from there. So without further ado, let's get Conjita and Matt Wolfram on the show. Welcome, guys.
Hey, Del.
Hi, Del. How are you?
Very good, very good. How are you guys doing today?
Doing great.
Doing great.
Matt, you sound like you're asleep, man. Did I wake you up?
No.
Yeah, he sounds echoey, yeah.
That's just me normally. I'm kind of a mellow, low-key kind of guy.
You're the low-key guy, huh? All right. Well, since you went out here and did all this non-low-key stuff, I guess who do we talk to first?